Welcome to Take a Seat, the Ashfords Trainee podcast. I'm your host, Bella. Join me as I speak to members from each department at Ashfords, exploring trainee life within various seats. Good morning. Welcome to our first episode of our Take a Seat Trainee podcast. Like to give a big welcome to our partners, Liam and Anusheh, for joining us this morning. Let's kick it off with a brief introduction.
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
So my name is Anusheh. I'm one of the partners in our commercial disputes team, and I've been with Ashfords now for about 5 years.
And I'm Liam. I'm also a partner in the commercial disputes team, and I've been with Ashfords forever. I was a trainee in 2011, qualified in 2013.
Been here for the long haul.
The long haul.
Mr. Ashfords.
Mr. Ashfords.
Brilliant. And then for those of you who don't know, my name is Bella. I am an early careers advisor here at Ashfords. So I sort of handle the trainee life cycle, as I like to call it. Brilliant. Thank you again so much for being here this morning. Let's go into a bit of a dive into commercial disputes. If you could tell us sort of a bit about what your team does, and go into a bit of detail for people who may not sort of know the department.
So I think the easiest way for us to summarise what we do is if a business of any type, whether that's a sole trader or a international multi-corp, is in dispute with anybody else, whether that be another business or an individual, we get involved to help resolve those disputes. So it is everything from injunctions to cease and desist letters to contract disputes. It's a really wide-ranging area.
It's a hugely broad church, which is what makes it interesting, because every dispute is different. Even every contract dispute is different, but we're dealing with so many different areas of disputes, so many different businesses, that you get a real insight, A, into businesses and B, into the law, because we're covering the full spectrum.
I think with litigation, no day is the same, and that's certainly for me something which really drew me to the area, something which I certainly appreciate.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I hear quite often from the trainees sort of in particular about this team is the kind of dynamic work involved in things. So going into a bit more about trainee life within commercial disputes, I'm just wondering if you can give me sort of a brief overview initially about what a trainee would be able to get involved with in the team, and, you know, just sort of more about the kind of work that they'd be doing.
I think we're a team where we get trainees involved literally in everything and anything. So whether it's attending meetings, through to drafting documents, court documents, attendance at court, that's what trainees really enjoy, is coming along to court. And actually, it's a huge insight into what all of the other work is for. So, we really encourage, if we've got any hearing, if we can get a trainee along to it, it's great experience. So literally the full journey of litigation, they will be involved in some way or another. And I don't know about
It's quite diverse, isn't it? Because some
hugely.
of them, if we're working on a really big case, they will be brought in to a mediation, to the client meeting, as Liam says, sit behind the barrister at court, taking a note of what's going on in a court hearing. But actually, we do have, for some of our clients, some more straightforward matters, which aren't huge multi-million pound disputes. And some of those, by the end of a seat, as a trainee, you could expect yourself to be running that from start to finish. You may be involved from the first phone call with the client all the way through to saying, this is now resolved, thank you. So obviously under close supervision and always with help at hand. But yeah, so you will get to dip in and out of the really big matters so that you get exposure to that. But there is also the opportunity to build your case handling skills from the outset and throughout.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually probably something that's quite rare in terms of getting that sort of experience within a training contract. So I know it's definitely something that the trainees really do appreciate. In terms of sort of regular day-to-day tasks, what do they look like?
For our trainees or for us? Or,
for a
or
trainee,
both?
yeah.
Right. So,
we'll get into yours later.
Yeah, I'll tell you all about what I do. So for our trainees, so for example, about 4 o'clock yesterday, I was progressing a cease and desist letter. That's a letter that basically tells someone to stop harassing my client in fairly awful circumstances. And actually, I needed some assistance with that. So I phoned Sophia, our trainee, and said, can you have a go at drafting undertaking? So what we're asking them for is to stop harassing and to put that promise in writing. So Sophia picked straight up with the draft undertakings. I said, look, do it from scratch. I'll then look at it and we'll sort of finalise the document together. So started off, she started reading my draft letter, get the background of the matter, and then, by this morning, I'll have a draft undertaking that says, stop harassing our clients. This is the promise I'm making. And she's will be doing that from scratch from looking at other documents I've created. And that was something that, at 3 o'clock, she didn't know she'd be working on. So that's often how we work, as things will just evolve and we get trainees involved with them.
Absolutely. And I can give you the other half of our trainees day yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've just taken over a case from another firm of solicitors. The client's come to us and we've got a trial starting next month. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to get on top of the file, make sure everything's ready to go. And we realised that we had a number of documents missing from the file, court documents missing. Our predecessor firm, the firm we took it over from, no longer exists, so they've gone out of business. So Sophia found herself contacting the court, liaising with the clerks, obtaining copies of documents, but it actually means that when it comes to the trial next month, she's going to be all over those documents. She's going to be in the trial, she'll be in the courtroom, sat with the barrister and involved from here on out.
Yeah, really embedded. I wouldn't even know where you would start to begin with something like that. I bet it was a slight panic in the first instance of kind of where do you even begin?
Definitely in commercial disputes, you have to be a problem solver because everybody comes to us with a problem. That's why. So you have to be quite innovative, strategic, and also calm in a crisis. Calm in a crisis is key. But because we're a big team and we work collaboratively throughout, Liam has cases and I have cases, but we talk to each other about our own cases all day, every day.
Constantly.
You're never...
No, we do. We bounce so much off of each other to the extent where, literally can be anyone in the team from our head of department right through to a trainee. We'll literally just stand up, look around, see who's around and say, what do you think about this? And we'll almost sort of like war game it together and say, Absolutely. Well, I think this, or this is my view on it. And, invariably there are 6 different opinions from 5 different people, but we get a solution in the end. And it's a really collaborative way of working.
And it does mean that even though it can be sometimes high pressure and feel like it's going to be a slightly stressful situation, you're never on your own with it, whether you are a trainee or you are a partner. We do truly work as a team.
So going into a bit more about those kind of skills that a trainee can expect to gain in those 6 months, can you tell me a bit more about kind of, I guess, maybe the evolution of somebody who has never been in a seat involved with litigation towards kind of getting to the end of that first sort of 6 months? What sort of skills and things do you think they would pick up, or how would they evolve?
I mean, I typically think that a commercial dispute seat, in order to get the best from it, you might want to aim to have it not as your first seat in the law firm, because you are calling on so many different skills and so many different areas. A business dispute can involve real estate issues, commercial issues, corporate issues. So I sometimes think that you're better off coming to that commercial dispute seat slightly later in your training contract. But one of the big things that I see in our trainees is from the day they start in the seat to the day they leave, their confidence is increased hugely, because it can be a daunting seat to start in. Their organisational skills, I think that's one of the most important things for me, is actually organisation, prioritisation of your workload. We work to court deadlines, and unfortunately for us, if we miss a deadline, there can be consequences of it. So I think that's one of the things that they really have to focus on, is finding their voice, speaking to us, having that dialogue about what they've got on, what's the priority, and how to work through that. Is there anything else that you think?
I think it's a department, and it's a job that really requires thought about how you communicate. So I always tell trainees that when you're writing a letter to the other side, you're also writing it to the judge, because you want the judge to buy what you're saying, and the other side will maybe dismiss it. But you really have to think carefully about how you articulate arguments, how you say things. And actually, that's what we see from trainees, that will sort of put everything down on the paper, on the first letter they might write for us. And it slowly becomes more and more refined as they get the idea of how best to make impact with what they're communicating. And you can tell day one from 6 months in it's wildly different in terms of
Absolutely.
how they've refined those skills. And it's really nice to see that coming along through the seat as well.
I think that communication side of things is always really funny, because I've heard that teams can always tell if a new trainee has been in a seat that involves litigation, because the way that they start writing those kind of initial emails and things is very to the point. And they almost say, no, you don't need to come at it with that kind of action.
We were, yeah. So interestingly, I had almost the reverse of that. So broadly, I always wanted to be a litigator. That was all I wanted to do. And first seat, I was put in trust in estates, and frankly had to Google it and see what they did. And I had no idea what I was going into, but actually found it. I still wanted to be a litigator, but I found it a really, really helpful seat, for skills, for client management, for just having 60 clients at once. Sometimes sort of dealing with that many different names and things like that. And then my second seat was with Comlit, and the partner at the time said, Your letters are very good, but they're all very much nice and full of that usual way of me dealing with a client in the trust and estates team is communicating with other people and professionals in that scenario was hugely different to how the expectation was in a commercial litigation seat.
Whilst even now, Liam has to tone down my letters, don't you?
So
I don't have the problem of being too nice in my
I do sometimes do a bit of a sense check, don't I? And sometimes say, maybe you could word it this way. But we each come with it with a slightly different style and technique, and none of them are wrong, and one of them's right, which is my way.
But whilst you were saying that obviously you can tell a trainee who's been in a litigation seat in the way they write, it's really interesting, because actually, whilst we will often agree on the legal principles, Liam, myself, any other member of the team, we would all approach it entirely differently. And you find your own style of litigation.
And what we really encourage actually in the team is working with as many people as possible, so that you get and actually what the really good trainees do, and you see it again in their work, is they'll pick the bits they like from Anusheh and how she deals with something, the bits they like from Andrew, the bits they may like from me occasionally come in there too. And it really does develop them, and with that, their own style as well. So it really does, it's one of those teams where it makes a difference working with as many people as possible. We don't just pair a trainee with a partner and you get all of your work from that partner. We encourage work right across the team, not only because actually we all do slightly different work sometimes as well, so that they get a really broad spectrum of the different types of work that we do. And I think that makes the seat much more enjoyable in terms of trainees value that, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that team collaboration is a really big piece. Obviously, all of the different departments across Ashfords are very different, but can you give me kind of a bit of insight into what the team environment is like within commercial disputes?
I mean, I think that the other teams would say that we are quite noisy, to start with. No, we are quite a lively team. I think to be a litigator, and particularly in commercial disputes, you have to have a degree of confidence and
an opinion on everything.
And an opinion on everything. And Liam and I pride ourselves in having polar opposite opinions on everything.
Yeah, well, that is definitely true. But yeah, I think that's right, is that actually anyone can come to the team and find a place in our team, because actually we have a huge range of different trainees that come with us, but they always actually end up commenting on how fun is. Can I say fun? It sounds a bit
fun,
cliche,
but I'm not sure whether that's a reflection on what I do for fun.
So what we do is sometimes very, very stressful, but what we pride ourselves on is not creating a stressful environment. It is that thing about bouncing ideas around, but equally just we are probably a bit noisy, aren't we? Because
a bit noisy, but we all get on fantastically well, which I think helps when you're doing something which is often high pressure or slightly stressful. But I think that the seat naturally attracts people who fit in with the team dynamic, because you'll find as you go along your journey that either you're a litigator or you're not. I've yet to come across somebody who says, "Oh, I'm just not sure whether I want to do contentious work or non-contentious work." You're either going to love doing what we do, or you're going to say, "Great experience, but it wasn't for me. I'd prefer to do something more transactional." So a real estate or a commercial or something like that. It's very rare that you find someone. Yeah, and
I'd always wished that I'd been a bit more open-minded, because I said at the beginning I was going to be a litigator and nothing else. And actually, the people that come with a bit more of an open mind about it, actually get more out of it, I think, and get more out of all of the seats they do. Because actually, those people that really, really want to qualify into litigation, we always encourage them to do other seats on the third floor, which at Ashfords, that's essentially our commercial division, are all up on the third floor. And they can get really good skills from the non-con, the transactional work, and come into it. I tried my hardest to have 2 seats in litigation, and luckily I was successful. I would have done all 4 of my seats in litigation, but actually the trust and estates seat I did, as well as the what was called projects then, which was a sort of large contracts and public sector work, was hugely beneficial for my practice now as a litigator. So really keep an open mind. But Anusheh is absolutely right. You find that if you were unsure when you came in, you'll know at the end of your seat whether you're a litigator or actually you prefer non-con work.
Definitely. And I did my training contract in a much smaller firm, and it meant that I did a really varied training contract, doing everything from criminal through to home information packs, which were a thing back in the day when you were buying a house.
In the same seat?
No,
Oh, right.
not in the same, just
blimey.
in the same training contract. And as much as I was like, I don't want to be doing any of this, I know what I want to do, all of the skills that I picked up in every single seat along the way are drawn on in what I do today, because commercial disputes is so varied. Actually, that underlying base level of knowledge, you're going to be drawing on it all the time.
I went out of my way not to do a property seat. And actually, that's something I regret now, because property touches so much. And actually would have been a really good experience. So property sometimes is a bit like that as well, where people either really want to do it or don't. And I was one of the ones that hated landlord at school and at university, and therefore decided it wasn't for me. But yeah, if I had done that now, I can definitely see, particularly on the transactional side, those that have done a property seat and comp prop come in sort of really knowing how a deal works and is structured and all of that stuff. And yeah, there are skills literally everywhere.
If we have any current trainees listening, can you just rewatch that part that he just said about a property seat? But no, I'm really pleased that you both did touch on that, because that's something from an HR perspective, obviously kind of putting people into those different seats is something that we really appreciate when trainees are more open to kind of gaining that different experience, and also putting their trust in us a little bit to kind of make the best decisions for them in terms of how their training contract gets to be the most varied.
Absolutely.
And if they do have that kind of end goal of, they've done their first 2 seats and they know exactly where it is that they'd like to qualify, putting in a seat that we know will have different skills within that they can then take in when they qualify. And we do think about those extra things when we are kind of making those decisions. So I think it's just important to note that keeping as open-minded as possible.
Absolutely. And there is no doubt in my mind the best litigators have not simply litigated for the entire of their career. You have to go and get some experience, whether that's in your training contract or in paralegal roles or whatever your journey's been.
Yeah.
To be a good litigator, you need to have a foundation of knowledge across the board. So it will serve them well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anusheh, you touched a little bit on your kind of route into law and your background. I'm wondering if we could get a sort of overview of where you started out and how you sort of found your way into being a partner at Ashfords.
Absolutely. So mine and Liam's journeys were very different. As Liam touched on earlier on, he is Ashfords through and through, started his training contract with the firm and is now a partner there. I took a different route. As I mentioned, started my training contract at a smaller firm and did a really diverse training contract, which was great. It gave me experience which I needed. And then once I'd concluded that, and by the time I concluded that, I had firmly decided that I was a litigator and that I would not be the person you needed to instruct if you needed a property transaction done. I'd have been terrible at it. And in actual fact, I had an idea in my mind that I wanted to be at a bigger firm. And with that in mind, I actually went on the professional skills course that you do during your training contract?
PSC,
After the LPC.
Yeah.
It's all gone now.
Oh, well, there you
Professional
go.
skills might exist
Absolute
anymore.
fossil over here.
No, we've got SQE now.
And that covers what would have been the professional skills.
Well, you
element.
don't need to do the professional skills course to qualify with the SQE now, whereas you did with the LPC.
Yeah.
Every day's
See,
a
well,
school day.
The PSC served me well because
Yeah.
it was back in the day, taught by partners of law firms.
Mm-hmm.
So it was taught by, one of my sessions was a partner in a big law firm. And I was that person at the front, like, me, the whole way through. And on the back of that, they offered me a job on qualification. So I then moved to a big law firm, and I qualified doing catastrophic injury, personal injury work, which was brilliant experience, marched me up and down the civil procedure rules, which govern everything that we do. But I very quickly came to the realisation that actually it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. So I decided that I wanted to transition into commercial disputes. And so I started talking to other firms, and it became clear that obviously at 5 years qualified, it wasn't going to be all that easy to just change area of specialism. So I moved down to a regional firm, a smaller firm, where they were willing to take me in and let me do that. And
Let
then
you loose, I thought you were going to say that.
and then practiced there for about 6 years. And I had been talking to colleagues at Ashfords for quite some time, saying what the opportunities there. And the opportunity arose actually in the middle of COVID.
That's
so
right,
so I joined the firm in December 2020, and I worked remotely until August.
I don't think I met you for a year.
Yeah, August 2021. It was the first time I met
Wow.
the team in person. But been here ever since. And I joined the firm as a senior associate and made partner.
3 years ago.
This is my 3rd year as a partner now. Yeah. So, and I can't see myself moving. It's a lovely firm, brilliant culture, great work. So
Great team.
great team, great colleagues.
Great colleagues.
So that was, my journey in a nutshell. But Liam, yours?
Yes, and mine was very... So I didn't want to be a solicitor. I wanted to be a barrister. Probably still do a little bit.
Liam's going to be a judge one day.
Yeah, maybe.
For sure.
Career change.
Yeah, well,
It's
so
not too late.
you can go from being a solicitor into being a judge, so who knows?
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be a barrister. You know, throughout university, that was all I looked at. I didn't do work experience in solicitors' firms. I did many pupilages following barristers around, and found it all quite fun for various reasons, including how expensive it was and how challenging the prospects were of getting a pupillage and everything else like that. It wasn't right for me at that time. So I then ended up doing 4 years in a management job. And I say management. I was managing a call centre, huge call centre. Like I think it had turnover of about 100 million quid, and the clients were Sky and Travelodge, and my client was Bank of America. So really big.
Allowed to disclose all of that on this podcast?
Yes, all in the public domain, I hope. The panic that went across my face. Yes, that's all fine. I will tell you a story about it in a minute, which is why I then decided to apply for Ashfords, which I can anonymise. So I did that for a few years because all the time through school and college and everything else, I'd worked in call centres, and it was just that's what I did to sort of make some money, as that was my kind of student job. So got to this point and thought, right, I better apply for a job. Ended up in Portsmouth, and actually there was like a genuine eureka moment. This is the story I'll anonymise, where I was about maybe 22, 23, managing a team of about 120 people. And one day there was a guy who was probably in his mid-30s, and he just lived for the weekend. All he wanted to do was sort of earn enough money so he could go out, and so he didn't really care about his job. And I found this out one day because we were in an old former bank, and it had security windows where you had a pane of glass, and then there was another pane of glass with a cavity in between you could slide across. And he decided, whilst on a call with a customer, to jump in there, shut it up, because he thought it would make his friends laugh, which it did, but he got stuck. So I found myself at sort of 22, 23 with a law degree thinking, actually, I'm having to tell a grown man off for getting stuck in between two windows. I was like, come on, this isn't really what you're paid to do, is it? And it just was one of those moments where I thought, right, I need to get back and start making my training contract applications.
Do you think that time doing something completely non-law related helped? Because I went straight the way through, never took a gap year. Day after I finished my LPC, started in a paralegal role to try and get my 6 months time to count. So I'm intrigued.
Hugely beneficial, actually. And, the people management was one thing, but actually the client contact we had there and working for those huge clients, it was really, really helpful. And I bring all that into the job today. And it helps you sort of earlier, I think, into your career journey, see things more from a client's perspective than the lawyer's perspective, I think, because, you see, when I occasionally had contact with lawyers in that job for scripts on the call centre and things like that, you would see what the lawyers were interested in.
Or claims from employees who'd injured themselves getting stuck between two windows.
Fortunately, they weren't any. But you'd see what the lawyers were interested in, and then you'd see what clients were interested in, what the business was interested in. So, yeah, hugely valuable. And actually, for anyone that's thinking about training contracts, and I spent my whole interview. So I was, again, a long, long time ago, but it was an interview with Charles Pallow, who's since retired, and another partner who had retired before I joined the firm in the end. So I didn't really know him very well. But I spent the whole interview talking about my non-legal, the work experience I had in that call centre, the stuff I'd done that was outside of the law entirely. And, that's what they were interested in, because it was that commerciality that I could then at least think about and talk slightly intelligibly about.
Absolutely. So. And that's something we find interesting. We both get involved with the trainee assessment centres. And actually, I find some of the most interesting answers are when they're calling on things which are completely non-law related.
You just give yourself an easier ride in that sense. And actually, there are even if it's just working in something completely non-law related where you don't feel like you've got any responsibility, but let's say you work in a shop and you're dealing with customers, or you work in a restaurant and you're serving people. All of that genuinely does bring skills into a job like this, particularly if you sort of turn your mind to it and think, how does that help me? And that's what's always interesting, is those that have got enough self-awareness and sort of skills to think, actually, that really difficult conversation I had with a customer is going to, give me skills for dealing with difficult clients, difficult people on the other side, difficult judges. And it's sort of, that was a very long answer to say, I found it really useful to have not just worked in law for the whole time.
And that's something that I'm sure, Bella, you'll say to candidates all the time is,
Absolutely.
If you're coming into an interview for a training contract, you don't have to have had masses of legal experience. You can draw on any experience you've had, whether that be in your education or part-time jobs or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And especially, myself sitting in on the interviews, I don't have any legal experience. So if you're kind of going into massive detail about these kind of complex things that you've been working on, it's going to go above my head. Yeah. So it really is the skills, those transferable skills that you can pull out of those kind of situations that we pay the most attention to. And it breaks my heart when people say, I don't have any legal work experience, can I still apply? And it's like, absolutely. Getting legal work experience is really difficult, especially nowadays.
And I think the other thing that's really important is, whilst legal work experience, of course, is helpful if you're fortunate enough to be able to get some,
Definitely.
But it is not a deal breaker. But neither is where you went to school or things like that. Both Liam and I have no shame in it. Neither of us were privately educated. Both of us, come from backgrounds where it probably wasn't to be expected that we'd be sat here today as partners in law firms. So there are no barriers. Yeah,
absolutely. And that is a really, really important point. And if anyone follows me on LinkedIn, which I'm sure some people do, that is a message I bang on about quite a lot.
Shout out to the mug. Perfect opportunity.
The LinkedIn Lawyer Makes Partner mug that I got from the team.
I think we have to make clear that these
we have to acknowledge it.
Are not that Liam bought himself a mug with his own face on it and that I bought myself a plaque with my own name on it. These were gifts that we both got when we were made partner.
And also the little sort of awkward hand wave is superimposed on, apparently. Because when our head of department announced to our team that I had been successful in my application for partnership, apparently my response was to do a little awkward wave. So therefore it features on the mug. But
yeah, and that social mobility piece as well. Obviously, we're in the social mobility sort of group within Ashfords, and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep law accessible, but also making sure that people, when they do join Ashfords as well, are feeling like they still have those kind of equal opportunities. So, just to mention
it's really important, isn't it? Because law firms do have to be cognizant of not falling into a trap of creating identikit trainees from identical backgrounds. And it's really easy to fall into that, but it's something we as a firm are so mindful of. And in actual fact, our partnership is representative of our attitude to it, but as are our trainee intakes, our support staff across the board, I think it's a pretty diverse.
Yeah, and just a hugely important issue that I will keep banging on about.
As you should.
I will. So I literally grew up, my household, no qualifications in there whatsoever. University was not where I was expected to go. My mum was the cleaner in my school, and it was just, I think, so I said I didn't do any solicitor work experience. I just randomly got placed at a solicitor's in year 10 or something for that work experience thing you got. And I thought, this is really interesting. This is something you could do. And I just decided that was what I was going to do. I was going to do something in the law, and then got into the barrister route, and then finally back to law. So yeah, hugely important. And it's something it makes a difference to the firm as well. I think that we are interested in it.
Definitely. I'm going to take the conversation a bit of a turn here. Like to dive into some of the horror stories, or the most memorable cases, the things that kind of
sit back, make yourself comfortable.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I mean, we've all got quite a few, and clients always appreciate a war story, and that shows your experience and shows what you've done. I've got several that I can probably talk about. I remember, so when I was a trainee, for example, I was a trainee with a partner that's now a district judge, in fact. And we had this, it was a small claims hearing, and it was one where we were doing it because it was an existing client of the firm, and she wanted some help with this small claim where she had sold an infertile dog. Apparently, that was the allegation.
I love this story.
Yeah, so I dine out on it a lot.
He doesn't have any other stories.
This is my story. So I remember at the time, the partner, because obviously it's small claims, this client, you can go away and do this yourself. Judges are very used to dealing with litigants in person. You'll be absolutely fine. But I, being keen and wanting to get some court experience, said, why don't I go up and represent the client at this hearing? Which the partner said, yeah, great idea, Liam, you go and that. So off I trotted to Salisbury County Court. I mean, this was my first ever hearing, and I essentially defended this lady who was accused of selling an infertile dog. The claim was for £4,999, which was the absolute limit of the small claims track, because that was
because Liam's a fossil. That's how long ago.
That shows how long ago it was, doesn't it? And our defence was, no, you bought the dog as a show dog, and the lady who was the claimant said, no, I bought it as a stud dog, and because it's infertile, you're in breach of contract. So it was quite a bizarre case, and certainly not typical of what we do now. But ultimately, I convinced the judge that it was, and the client at one point asked me to make a submission that, to the effect that if it was infertile, it was because they had tried to breed the dog in Plymouth, and the dog had picked up some sort of disease there. And the claimant lady had brought along with her 10 of her friends from Plymouth that were all sat in the back of the courtroom. And as soon as I made that submission that if it were infertile, it might well be because it's picked up something from Plymouth.
You made the submission. You rolled with it.
Well, I think it was an important submission to make because it went to causation, of course. And I got heckled from the back of the courtroom by all of them. I thought there was going to be a riot. At which point the judge fiercely said, if you make another sound from the back, you're being thrown out of my courtroom. At which point I thought, yes, I've won. and I did. So yeah, that's one insight. But
I mean, I've probably got a couple, two at either end of the spectrum. One was my first ever advocacy. And again, I did LPC route. So I'd done all of my practice advocacy in front of a female tutor. So I'd been mum the whole way through. So I tip up to do my first hearing. And first off, I'm told it's an application to come off record, which is basically we're saying we're no longer acting for a client. The partner says, don't worry, nobody ever turns up to these hearings. You won't have an opposition. You'll be absolutely fine. So I turn up and first off, the client is there ready to give submissions, which I wasn't prepared for, but fine. But more frustratingly, I spent the entire 30-minute hearing going, Mum, sorry, sir. Mum, sorry, sir. The whole way through. It was a male judge and I called him Mum throughout. And he was actually very forgiving. We got our application. It was all absolutely fine. And once everybody else had left, he said, was this your first advocacy? I said, yes, it was. I'm so sorry. And he was like, you did very well. Don't worry. You never have to do your first one again. And that was that.
And they've since changed it now because district judges are referred to as judge.
Yes.
So you won't have that problem if you're a trainee being sent to court now.
And then I think my only other horror story, and I only tell this one because it was such a good learning experience, was I had a high court, very big hearing starting. And on a Sunday evening, I checked my emails to find an email from our barrister team saying they were withdrawing from the case. And I had no barristers ahead of a hearing and I had to attend the hearing. I thought it'll be safe. They're not going to give me rights of audience to speak in the High Court. And sure enough, the judge said, Mrs. Burcher, I'm granting you rights to speak. And I was like, oh no. So got through that, but then had to prep for a huge trial with no barristers. So I wrote submissions, did cost submissions. And at the time it was deeply stressful, but I learned so much. And I mean, how often do I refer to that case? Even now?
It was, that was a big case. And now you want to be a barrister too.
And now I have
or maybe
no
you really
desire,
don't.
no desire to be a barrister at all. But from those war stories, we learn masses. So
yeah, what's the phrase? I always tell trainees this: calm seas make poor sailors. So actually, that experience of
he has a lot of sayings.
I do. There's a book apparently where Cara in our team writes down my sayings.
We should have brought that for the table.
Yeah, my favourite is you can't play chess with a pigeon.
Mine was even a blind squirrel finds a nut eventually.
that one's quite good too. I've lost my chain of thought now.
Okay. No, that's great. And then in terms of career highlights, obviously these are really interesting stories in terms of, going through those sort of high pressure situations. If you could give sort of just one highlight.
I mean, genuinely, this is a job where you help people. And I guess some of the best moments for me have been you deal with clients in possibly the most stressful situations of their life where everything is sometimes at stake for them. And that's not just individuals. Sometimes that's business owners that, face losing their business and everything else. So actually the thing I've sort of got the most out of is the feedback from the clients where they say, thank you, Liam, you've just made it bearable, or it's been, I couldn't have got through this without you. And I think those are the ones that always sort of, make me think that's why we do this.
When you make a difference, it makes it leaves a lasting impact for us as the lawyers as well. But taking it from a slightly different angle, I think one of the highlights for me has been, since being at Ashfords, the types of clients we get to work with are phenomenal. We get access to brilliant clients, which means that we see some really interesting cases. And I was recently involved in some litigation arising out of Grenfell, and it was so interesting. And I spent 4 days in the High Court back in December in a courtroom, and I think there were 38 barristers representing all the different parties. And I was sat taking a note. Even as a partner, I was there just to take a note of what was going on. But it was so interesting, and sitting back and thinking, crikey, I'm part of this piece of litigation. I think that one will leave a lasting impact as well.
That's amazing. I'm going to sort of close this off with advice for future trainees. So anybody who may be listening thinking that they want to do a training contract, or even people who maybe are current trainees with us, what kind of big piece of advice would you give them?
I think for those looking for a training contract is about resilience. Certainly my journey was not one where I just applied for a training contract, got handed it on a plate, and off I sailed into the sunset. There were some no's along the way, and being able to just dust yourself off and say, okay, it wasn't the opportunity for me right now, and to keep going, and not letting it deter you or thinking that it's a reflection on whether or not you'll be able to succeed in this career, because it's not. We've all been there. And then for our current trainees, I think probably being really having some direction as to exactly what they want to do and why, and probably going back to our earlier conversation of thinking about where you want to end up, but then thinking strategically about what's going to give you the toolkit to do well once you get there, and being selective about the seats that you try and select. Or if you get seats that you don't want, you are going to get something from it, which is going, make the most out of it. Even if you're absolutely dead set against a seat and you're told that's where you're going, I think we can both guarantee you will take skills from it. You will get experience, which will apply to wherever it is that you eventually end up.
Yeah, and I think that's still resilience as well, in it,
Absolutely.
isn't it? Just in sort of a different way. Resilience is definitely something that we're paying a lot more attention to, and something that we're really looking for in terms of certain skills that trainees.
And you need it at every stage of this career.
Yeah.
We have to be as resilient now as we were applying for training contracts as second year undergrads.
Absolutely.
It's just a different type of resilience. But yeah, I think resilience for me is probably the key one.
Yeah, and in fact, that was the one I was going to go for, and you stole it from me. But actually, piggybacking slightly off of that is also that resilience. Part of that is also not comparing your journey to other people and your route in, because there are so many different routes in, and even whether that's the pace in which you're progressing, or the how you get to law. In none of it matters, because once you're there, you're all there, and we're all doing the same job. Law is one of those careers where once you're there, it doesn't matter where you've come from, how you've got there, how long it's taken, and everything else. You're then judged entirely on your skills and what you're able to, the value you can bring to clients and everything else. So
I don't think we've ever sat in our team and asked what people got in their GCSEs, A levels,
no.
even their undergrad. I mean, it just doesn't. It's accepted that once you're in the firm, you deserve to be in the firm, and then you're judged on your journey there.
Your skills then talk for themselves, and that's how lawyers are judged. It's what you can bring value-wise. And then in terms of our current trainees, I would say, so my approach to being a trainee was to say yes to everything, every opportunity, every piece of work that I could do it as well as I could possibly do, because actually this job is so much about experience, and the best experience you can get is just by doing lots of things. And
I'd add a caveat to that though, because one of the bits of feedback I got was, Anusheh, you need to stop saying yes to everything, because I was a complete yes man. I'd like every job, every event, absolutely everything. I was like, yes, of course I can do it. Actually I did myself a disservice because I couldn't turn things around quick enough or to the standard I would like to, because I'd just taken on too much. So actually also having the confidence to say I would love to, but I just don't have the capacity to do it at the balance.
We told you we disagree on everything. No, but Anusheh is absolutely right, and I suppose it's taking that sensibly. It's just making sure that you're open to all of those experiences. So the networking thing where you might just be asked to go along and sort of hand out badges is all good experience, because you're seeing it. The kind of work where if you're another team's really busy and they just need someone to look at something for them, and you can get involved with that, absolutely right. Whilst of course managing your workload and your capacity, and understanding that you don't have to say yes to everything. It's just sort of, I guess, being open about those things.
And confidence to put your hand up.
Absolutely.
Like, don't sit quietly. If you've got too much, too little, you're stuck. Or frankly, there's something completely non-work related, like having the confidence to come and speak to whomever in your team as well. Really important for your journey.
Yeah, and I would hope that our culture really lends itself to people being able to feel like they can ask those questions. Absolutely. So it's just about having the confidence to do it, because you'll always be met with.
I mean, we're very fortunate. This is a big firm, but a big firm who has what I would call, and maybe it's not our line, but a small firm culture, whereby it really is concerned about its people, and not just its people inside the workplace versus targets or anything like that. It's a genuinely caring firm.
The way I see it is everyone wants you to win and do well and to bring your best self to work, and actually we're all about enabling that. So every conversation you'll have will be for that purpose, I think. So yeah, it's exactly that.
Wonderful. And on that note, to everybody who may be interested in coming into Ashfords and experiencing the culture firsthand, our applications are now open. So please do go and apply. Just had to plug that in there.
Great segue.
But thank you so much, Liam and Anusheh. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.